Somebody need to yell action? We will take action. Thanks for coming, everybody. I know there's tons of you out there. Woo, make some noise. You got to clap 3 times as loud because you're making up for some of the people that should be here who want to be here, but we just got to keep doing this and keep drawing people in. And I know Andrew loves doing all day long events. Let's hear it for Andrew for doing all the legwork. And we've got another microphone.
And by the way, is that working?
Are you on?
I don't know.
Here, I'll take that one and turn it on if you want.
We do have, I've got some surveys out at my table, so please fill out a survey. We've got an online version you can fill out with your cell phone or a paper version, but it'll really help me to bring back the impact of this event because we didn't get as many folks out today as we wanted, but we can try again. So
we will pull them in over time. It's just a matter of time, people. So welcome to the DIY media, the do-it-yourself media group. My name is Sean Kenny. I'm on the board at the CMC, but I also started the Pickle Fort Film Collective, which is a small, it's a house like 3 blocks from here, just on the way to the farmer's market where you can hand paint and draw on 16 millimeter film. And then we like to encourage people to make music to go with it. And then we project it, and we make a bunch of noise, and sometimes people dance. And that's one of the things we do at the Pickle Fort. And I'll just go from left to right. This is George Wietor, printmaker. Linda Otterbridge, creator of Hook a Sister Up podcast. And you want to say something? You had another thing you're doing, Linda. Can you do, scream it into the mic there for the people at home.
No Plan B Entrepreneurs, my podcast show. Hook a Sister Up is the brand.
Okay, No Plan B. Entrepreneur is the podcast. Can people get it anywhere?
Yes.
Out there on the World Wide Web and all that stuff? All right.
Yes.
I've heard of this World Wide Web thing. It seems like it's catching on. And Joshua Sikkema or Sikkema? Sikkema, filmmaker, owner of Black Pigeon Studios. Joshua, tell us a little about Black Pigeon.
Yeah, Black Pigeon was developed 3 years ago. We started in a hot warehouse right off Market.
I love a hot warehouse story.
Yeah,
that's good.
And we had a great cyc wall. The vision was there. It was proof of concept. I live in Los Angeles. I just wanted to build my flag here with my business partners who share the same admiration for Michigan as I do. So last year, got a new space, 6,000 square feet, and it's
air conditioning.
Walker. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Heat and air. Because I know artists often sometimes you get one or the other or neither.
we have both.
And George, we should let the audience that's here know George is here wearing 2 hats today. You can't tell because he only has 1 physical hat. George, do you want to tell us about your 2 hats that you're wearing?
Sure. So I am here, I thought, to talk primarily about Issue Press, which is my publishing project, my DIY publishing project. But I also, as a day job, work here at Community Media Center, in part on the Rapidian project. So I understand that that's been a topic of discussion today. So I guess I'll be talking about both.
And I think the intent was mainly to talk about the other, but it creeped in, media literacy and the Rapidian. We couldn't help but drift into that a little bit, but I figure it'll flow wherever it flows.
Sure, yeah.
Well, why don't we, George, since you're talking already, do you want to give us a little bit of the origin story of your printmaking?
Sure. So I'm a printmaker at night and publisher. I started out, weirdly enough, in all ages music organizing. I was the co-founder of this place called the DAC, which is still running now on Plainfield. And through the DAC, I had to make posters like all the time. We would do like 20 events a month sometimes, or 5. It was really hard to predict. But through that, I had to kind of, out of nowhere, create a poster making practice. And through that, I just fell in love with making posters and zines and producing my own material. Coming from that kind of DIY music community means you do everything yourself or in community. At least in the 10 years that I was a part of the DAC, we never had any financial support of any kind, so it was just like, what fun we can make on our own. And that's the sort of spirit in which I started the publishing project too. It started with one copy machine literally at the foot of my bed. And I use a weird machine called a risograph, which is very similar to a mimeograph, if anyone remembers those.
That's old school.
Very old school. This is like the new school version of the old school, where you can hook a mimeograph up to a computer. It's kind of magical, actually. But it's very similar to screen printing in that you can print one color at a time, and you need to have a dedicated drum for one color. So for each color, rather. So I started with black and green, and then worked at the foot of my bed for years with black and green until I could afford a second color, and then so on and so forth. And now, after like 3 second floor walk-up apartments, I have a studio space, and
Congratulations.
I don't have air conditioning.
No air
But I
conditioning.
do have heat, which is an improvement over my last warehouse space where I had neither. And now I have like 25 colors. So
25 colors.
Starting really
That's great.
small and building up very slowly.
And just to be clear, your bed is not still in the studio.
No,
with
I have
you.
I have
Okay.
a different domicile.
You've got,
Separated my
you've
life.
separated your sleeping
Yeah.
quarters from your production quarters.
Yeah.
I like
Well,
that.
it went from the bedroom to the hallway to the living room
Okay.
to a second bedroom
Yes.
to a studio.
Very nice.
That's
Very
the full
nice.
progression. That's where I'm at to this day.
Very nice.
And then also, as I said earlier, I in the daytime work at the Community Media Center. I'm part of web services, but I was also the first employee of the Rapidian, so I've been just sort of been a part of the project the entire
Right,
time.
right. And for those who don't know, the Rapidian, if you haven't heard of it, it's part of the Community Media Center. It's our, we've thought of it as citizen journalism, where anybody can write an article. It's very hard to keep something like that enlivened because it's hard to find citizen journalists who are ready to write about local stuff, community stuff. So, and I know Tommy mentioned this in his set, the Rapidian is now, we're taking on a program called the Documenters Program, which basically is going to be journalism covering all the city and county commission meetings and everything that's going on in the city. So, and we're trying to, George wasn't necessarily supposed to have to run the Rapidian by himself, but that's kind of, not completely by himself, but he sort of became the Rapidian in some ways.
I have some really good help, but yeah, it kind of came down to that I was among the last people standing with it, so I'm really, really excited to see this new investment in the program, particularly through the documenters, because I think it's a really exciting way to make people, basically train people in journalism, which is a foundational, like, core element of the Rapidian, but then also make public information more easily accessible.
Yeah, and somebody I was just talking to before was saying that it's hard for people to know what's going on at city commission meetings. Even if you go watch the meeting, it's a little bit dense sometimes, like, wait, what's happening? What just happened? So we're hoping to shine some light on that. I think they used to call them sunshine laws, where you get to report on what the government is doing all the time, good, bad, indifferent.
I also think there's a lot of great opportunities to educate what a city commission meeting actually is. I think that most people don't understand it, even people who regularly participate in it are expecting to have some kind of grand conversation, but that's not how our government works. So having a better explanation of like how you can get involved in basically this civic discourse, I think will be a big part of the Rapidian.
Very good, very good. So Linda, origin story, if you were a superhero, where did you come from? How did you get to where you are? Did you have a printer at the foot of your bed also? And what about air conditioning and heating?
I had air conditioning and heating.
All right, you had
Printer.
both.
No printer. Yes, exactly. I'll start with the origin of Hook a Sista Up. I'll start there.
Okay, and if you want to put the mic a little closer.
Is that better?
There you go.
Okay.
For the people at home.
Yeah, I'll start there. Well, Hook a Sista Up started 10 years ago. So this year is our 10-year anniversary. So It's been in Grand Rapids for a minute. I originally started Hookah Sista in, Grand Rapids, but moved to Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2008. And returned back to Grand Rapids in 2011. So when I started Hookah Sista, it was originally created for the area I was in, which was Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's where I learned. And if you've been around Hookah Sista for a while, you know this story, because I tell this story at all of our meetings. So it was meant for Charlotte, North Carolina, because that's the way they operated. And the culture of Charlotte, North Carolina at the time, in 2008, 9, was about, we say networking, they say hookups. They say, can you hook a sister up? What's the hookup? So they use terms like that of endearment in women entrepreneurs. So, and if you know Charlotte, North Carolina, a large population of African American entrepreneurs. So that's what was going on at the time. So when I started, it was based on that. That's where I was, the culture. So when I moved back to Grand Rapids, I had to bring it here and launch it here. So the launch happened here. I built the website, the Facebook group. In 2011, in that area, there weren't a lot of Facebook groups and communities for women entrepreneurs. So I used the word sisterhood, movement, things of that nature, community. So that's that. Fast forward.
Did you have a lot of help doing that, or were you flying
just-
solo most of the time?
And
Okay,
and
DIY people
we
right
did not
here.
practice this, y'all. He led right into that. That's why Hookah Sista was started, because of the silo. The way women worked in silos. And most of us worked at the kitchen table, in the dining room table. We created businesses based on that, working alone. And that was the main impetus behind Hookah Sista, was to bring women together. Idea labs that you hear now, ideation, idea labs. But in that era, 2011, that era, a lot of women were starting businesses but didn't know where to get connected to other like-minded women entrepreneurs. So it's the silo mentality. And once you get connected and working with each other, you learn that you're not alone. You learn that you have a community of other women doing what you're doing, and you learn that shared resources. So in the beginning, it was the from competition to collaboration, because you're collaborating with other women. It's not about competition. So that's the whole, everything behind Hookah Sista. Now, like I said, it's 10 years this year. That's Hookah Sista, the brand. And I say that because over 10 years, I've created lots of promotional opportunities under Hookah Sista, and there lies the podcast show. But the first thing I created under Hookah Sista, and I'm trying not to say acronyms. If you hear me say HASU, it's easier for me to say HASU, Hookah Sista Up, than it is. So is it okay? I just say HASU.
We love acronyms
Yeah,
here.
HASU. So I try not to.
We're
but
pro acronym.
because you know now, I've said it enough, you know HASU is Hookah Sista Up. So under HASU, the first thing I created in 2015 was Women Who Write GR. If you heard of Women Who Write GR, that's also a HASU brand. And I was doing that annually at the Salvation Army Kroc Center, bringing creatives, authors, publishers, and authors together annually for an event. And the last one we did was 2019 because of the pandemic. So that's the first
So
thing.
kind of a writer's workshop under the
Exactly.
brand of
Authors
HASU.
Everything is under the, I always
See
say
how I
the
worked that
house.
in there, just like that?
That's why I say we did not practice this.
We
but
did
you're
not
good.
practice.
You're good. Yep, it's a house.
We need some
So
HASU merch, I
Yep,
think.
yes.
Yes.
If you hear, we gotta talk.
All right. We're collaborating right
Yeah,
here in front
and
of
this
you.
is how it works. So yeah, so the brand is HASU, but everything that falls under is what I've been building over 10 years. So Women Who Write was the first room in the house. I call a suite of services. So if you hear me say suite of services, these are things that's created under the HASU brand. The next one was the podcast show, because if you, the podcast show is a no plan B entrepreneur, straight no chaser conversations. I created that because I'm working with women entrepreneurs who are leaving the 9-to-5. I call it cubicle farm. So you're leaving the 9-to-5 cubicle farm in hopes of going into entrepreneurship full time. Those are the stories I wanted to hear. I wanted to interview women who had taken that leap and how they took the leap to prepare other women who wanted to leave the 9-to-5 into the full time. So those, that's basically what the show is about, just a bunch of interviews of women taking the leap. And I wanted to eventually take the leap. I didn't know how. So one interviewee scared me when she said this. She said, I took the leap on Googling God. Who does that, for one? Googling God. That's all you had was Googling God to take the leap? And when she told the story, I said, that's some serious faith that you just take Googling God and you just leave your 9 to 5. So those are some of
Oh,
the
I see.
stories.
She actually left.
Oh,
her
yeah,
nine
she
to-
left
just
it
like that.
based on Googling
Wow.
God.
Okay.
She researched some stuff, and she said, I'm out of here. So the stories are just kind of crazy. And yeah, so that was the podcast show. And everything else after that was all promotional shows that I created. So there's Hidden in Plain Sight, there's If These Books Could Talk, there's an unboxing show, and the latest one I just created was the Hasu TV, because all those shows have to upload somewhere on
There you go.
YouTube.
You got a network, kind
Yeah,
of,
so all
in a
those brands.
sense.
So
All right.
that's Hasu, and the podcast show I created because I had to take the stories
Excellent.
to help other women
Excellent.
entrepreneurs.
All right. Well, let's jump right into Black Pigeon
Yeah.
Studios.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my origin first. I graduated high school at Forest Hills Eastern. Then I went to Grand Rapids Community College, and I dropped out after 3 weeks. And that gives you the FAFSA card, the preloaded card. So all the money went back, for my classes and books, and I used that to buy a camera and a laptop.
There you go.
Yep, and then
That's
worked-
almost like a Google and God story. You
Yeah, it was
just
something like that.
camera and a laptop.
Exactly.
I'm out of here,
Yeah,
people.
outta here. And then I did 4 years at Wood TV. Was the youngest to ever be employed there, which was kind of remarkable. It was like my college. And
That was
then-
your day gig, but you were also you were acquiring skills from them. I assume?
Yeah. Diane Kanowski was the GM at the time. She's now at Telemundo. But she gave me the opportunity. She was just like, hey, you could do night news. It's going to be crime and grime, but, you get your foot in the door. And then they slowly worked me into night news, and, I had a great time there. I left in 2015 for LA. They kind of pushed me out. They're like, you need to go.
Well, that's nice. They were thinking that you had other things you
Yeah,
could do,
yeah.
and they didn't want you to get stuck.
And their family always, they're like, look, our door's open. If you ever want a job back here, you can come back. So I left there, pursued music, film in music, worked at RCA for another 4 years, and then I started working with private, interests, music labels, and talent. And that transitioned into film when I met my two business partners, Thomas Blunt and John McClain. Johnny's originally from Detroit, and we met in LA by happenstance. He was wearing, all Detroit gear, and I was like, hey, I'm from Grand Rapids, and that's exactly what it led into to Black Pigeon being. So we shot our first short 3.5 years ago called Something in the Clouds. Immediately after, and it was amazing, the community really opened their arms, for us. And right after that, I was like, we need to plant our flag somewhere. And that was that hot warehouse off of Market.
Hey,
Yeah.
I was in a hot warehouse off of Market a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now
So
it's condos, but
yeah, there you go.
that's what happens.
Well, that's why we're out in Walker, because everything's getting turned into condos. But it's turned into a beautiful community-led. It's a film studio, but we also have photographers, and music videos are shot there. So now I also took up on the board. I'm for the Michigan Film Industry Association. We're responsible for the new tax incentive that's going to be hopefully in place soon. So
I did not realize a new tax and film incentive.
There is. It's very
statewide.
exciting. Yes, very exciting.
Oh,
With
how about
bipartisan
that, people?
support,
Is this
so.
breaking news, or is this already something?
I
I'm
know
just-
breaking news, but no, this is not breaking news. But yeah, that's our mission. Push our films here. We have a feature film we're going to be shooting just under $1 million at the end of this year. It'll be our first feature, and so our mission is to bring all of our LA connections, all our resources, and all our films to Michigan. We call it to bridge the gap. That's our
Excellent,
mantra.
excellent.
So,
And can you give us a little sample? What's the flavor of this film?
It's a boxing feature.
A boxing feature. All right,
Yeah.
fictional.
Yes.
All right, a fictional boxing feature. No pressure, but any release
Can't
date
say.
in mind? No,
Can't
too
say.
soon.
No, because then I'm stuck to it, right?
Very good, very good. And so you must have arranged some investors too. So that's part
No,
of.
it's on our dime.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
It's
good.
out of our pockets, and that's really, if you over the last 8 years, it's 8.5 now in LA. really retaining IP is the name of the game, right? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
modern day creator, the new director, especially with things like AI, and they're whittling everything down to a one man or woman show, right?
Right,
And that's
right.
just not the case. It's not. We don't want to. I don't want to work for an agency. I'd love to be
Yeah.
my own boss. I have been for the last 8 years.
DIY.
So.
That's right. That's right.
So
Good stuff. And I know George is passionate about the owning, and we'll skip over the Rapidian part for now, and maybe kind of go into this next issue of owning your own content. Issue press. I know that's important to George. Linda, I assume the same. But George, any thoughts on the artist retaining, the creator retaining some control and?
Yeah, so my situation's a little bit strange because at this point, I'm primarily a publisher. I'm not the primary creator for most of the stuff that I'm producing. So I kind of work out arrangements where I have the right to release this version of whatever it is that they're creating.
Right.
But
With
they
each
obvious-
artist, you
with
work
each
that
artist.
out,
So they
yeah.
obviously they retain their own IP and have the right to make a new version if they're, particularly if they're not happy. It hasn't happened yet, but if they're not happy with the version that I made. But the sort of extension is that I really feel that it's important for Issue Press to own the means of production. So
Right,
I do
right.
everything, every aspect of it in-house by myself. The editorial work, the curatorial work, the printing. I'm the printer. I'm
Right.
the binder. I'm sewing all the
Right.
books. I physically make everything in-house, and so I try not to take on a task that I can't do myself,
Right,
which
right.
is maybe a little bit control freaky, but it's also just like I want to be the only one responsible. Like if something goes wrong, I want it to
Right.
be my fault instead of
Right,
somebody
and control
else's.
freaky sometimes is also your quality controlling.
Yeah.
You can make sure it is what you need it to be.
Yeah, so I can work with the artist to create a very specific vision, and then since I'm doing all of the labor myself, I can hopefully live up to it. But the main thing is that, particularly working in Grand Rapids, I've had issues, originally when I was trying to outsource bindery work where people maybe weren't comfortable binding some of the materials that were being produced. There is actually a really massive book publishing industry in Grand Rapids, but it's all entirely built in the religious community. So
Oh, right. Right.
there are many places to have a book made, actually. Most people don't know about them because they're trade, but that trade is specifically religious content. So having all of the means of production on my own means that I'm sort of like, I'm my own center, I guess. So
Right.
I don't have to worry about work meeting the very shockingly low bar, or sorry, high bar.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say. Stuff that I would not have imagined ever would be an issue would suddenly become an issue.
Right.
So
right.
I do everything myself now.
Very good point. Very good point. Controlling the means of production. Linda, any thoughts? It sounds like you do that naturally with the way you've set up your, we'll call it a network or consortium,
Collaborative, yes.
collaborative. Yeah.
The topic of DIY, yeah, I've always worked in a nonprofit area, so 20 plus, 30 plus years. So when you work in a nonprofit area, you have a lot of supports, you have a lot of money, the funding, you don't worry about all that. Well, you do, because you still have to write grants and things like that. But
I need to talk to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, tons of nonprofit experience. But with Hook a Sista up in the brand, building it the way I built it, it's an LLC. So when you're LLC, you can't apply for anything. You can't get any money for anything. I can tell you the first 8 years of Hasu is built on my income. I've always worked in nonprofits in program manager, site manager positions, so a lot of grants responsible for. My master's degree in organizational management, so I can juggle a lot at one time. I'm big on processes, procedures, things like that. But when I built Hasu, it was literally built on my income. I worked and used my money to support my passion. And then 2 years ago, I lost my job. Well, lost my job with the pandemic. So losing my job with the pandemic when I'm making over $60,000 was tough.
Yeah, that
because,
hurts.
Yeah, it hurt.
That hurts.
When I'm
Because you were
making-
investing in yourself,
Right,
basically.
I was investing in the business and,
Yeah.
and not applying for grants. It's built on a membership model. When you're doing a membership model in 2011, you hear now subscription memberships, things like that. That's not the heavy thing you heard back then. So building it on a membership model and that business model just doesn't work over a long term. So now, after the pandemic hit and losing my job, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna make this 10-year. I'm gonna make this 10-year mark. So a lot of stuff I am doing myself. It's just, and I do have some VAs I put in place not long ago, VAs that help me with the channels and things like that. Just trying to get assistance with that. But it does help with the whole organizational management piece. It is hard to do DIY because again, I have just recently jumped on the platform with StreamYard. I'm not good with the techie part. My husband's good with the techie part, but not me. So I have to be able to do my podcast shows in a software where I can edit, and it edits for me. And it just now added reels. I can make reels out of it, and I can designate all my shows to go directly to YouTube. So it cuts out a lot of the other stuff. So that's me DIYing it the best I can with just,
Well, and that's a good point, the educational part. Joshua, you mentioned getting in at a local TV studio, you got to learn all kinds of stuff. Because there is, and the technology is changing quickly. Now, George, you're using the old, what was the name of that printer you said?
It's not that old, but it's called a risograph.
Misograph.
Yeah, mine's from 2004.
Okay. I was
It's a
thinking,
contemporary machine.
I was thinking 80s for some
no,
reason.
that's when they started. But.
All right, I have a couple more thoughts about that. I don't want to go over our time too much, but what might happen if, let's say you finish your boxing film, distribution. Now, George probably doesn't run into this, but if let's say your film, somebody said, hey, we want to distribute your film worldwide, are you going to want to retain control of that? And same question for you, Linda. How, if somebody came in, it's not that you would lose creative rights, but distribution is kind of its own beast in a way. I don't know if you've grappled with that or if you have any thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in what you want, right?
Right.
Like, it might benefit me to give away the farm on the first one, and in order to garner more success, to maybe build more leverage. I think one of my mentors is, Tyler Perry, and I see the method. I know what he did with Medea and the leverage that he had, which then turned into a studio, to now, like, when COVID happened, he was the only backlot that was shooting.
Right.
And he could do that because he could, everybody was housed on the studio, on the backlot. So I believe that it's, like, all up to what you really want. And obviously this first one's going to be special for me, but I got to learn when to push back, if we need to say, hey, this one's got to go, we got 3 more in the can, let's just keep it moving. But yeah, I mean, IP has always been special. I didn't come all this way just to, throw away everything,
Right,
and I
right.
think that's with the studio too. We want to teach. Part of the studio is also educational, to teach and empower the community to utilize, our studio as a stepping stone to be able to, retain IP and do it DIY.
Right.
And I think that's where everything's going. I learned on, you had Google and God, right? I had YouTube and God too.
Right, right.
So I think that's what really it comes down to, just, learning what it is you want out of life and how much you're willing to give away of your IP.
Right, and you can negotiate, each time you do it, you can negotiate, okay, this particular film, we might contract for distribution rights to this level, and the next time you might decide to do it differently, but I feel like all 3 of you are in some form or another saying you want to own your masters, as the musicians like to say, or in George, your case, like letting the artist, they're working with you to distribute their product, but they get to retain the rights. You get to right to distribute it, and yeah, okay. Let's jump into the lightning round. You guys ready? Bonus questions here. I'm kind of picking and choosing because we're not going to get to hit all of these topics. What would you say? Wait, we'll come back to that one. Why do DIY people matter? We're all DIY people. Why should anybody do this, if that's the one way to put the question? What impact might this have? Why is it important? Whoever wants to go first, go first.
I would say, thank you. I would say, especially now, news media, and I was just telling my sister Adrian, she's sitting out here. I was just telling her, I said, I'm basically catching a lot of the news just being on Facebook. When people go live, it hits before the news people get there. So I hear things before, it really is. The news is when someone picks up their phone and they go live and telling me what's happening in certain areas of Grand Rapids. Then I'll catch Fox 17, whatever, and then I'll see it there. So I would say that visibility, and I follow the visibility queen, Rashonda Pratt, and she's all about, she used to be a news producer. Visibility is power. My thing with Hasu is access is power. So we work in the same vein, same lane. But visibility is power. So you definitely want to share your message, be visible. And you can do that online because people are everywhere. And with Hook Assist Up, and I'm saying this because when I first started doing Hook Assist Up, people were like, why are you letting other people in that don't live in Grand Rapids? Because it wasn't meant for Grand Rapids alone. It's always been an online community. That's why I was on Facebook. It has no geographic boundaries. Anyone can join Hook Assist Up, and that's how being online and why it's important to be online now.
Right.
To be visible.
Right. Very good. Other thoughts?
Okay. I feel real dumb all the time. I don't know. I just, like I said, I started out as a teen and being really heavily involved in DIY media production, and it's just sort of been my life all along. Even as I took a job in a more traditional nonprofit that is luckily dedicated also to DIY media production, so it worked out really well, at least for my own.
So it's kind of woven into your character,
It's woven
really.
into my character, and it feels dumb, but I don't know another way to operate. Particularly, I work in visual art, which Grand Rapids doesn't even have an arts council. So the idea of like finding ways for art to be funded is, I can't solve that problem. So all I can do is rely on the sort of skills that I've created, that I've developed in DIY organizing to produce my own work on my own terms.
Yeah.
So I just also want to briefly defend traditional journalism a little bit. I definitely agree that, like, for breaking news, Facebook and stuff like that is really hard to replace. But I'm also really interested in history, and so to me, what I think the real value that traditional journalism and online journalism and citizen journalism create is producing a record that can be looked at historically.
Good point. Good point.
If you're not there for the live, we've got your back. That's sort of the goal.
Right.
I think.
The immediacy of Facebook, especially if somebody's standing there where something's happening, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just saw this thing," and then writing a story about it, interviewing people, doing follow-ups, that creates this historical record.
Yeah, there's
on top of that,
the sort of primary source, and then there's the journalism, and I think they both are really important aspects.
Yeah, very good. Joshua, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the world needs trailblazers, people that really forge paths that haven't been, crossed yet. And so I've noticed in LA, we can all sit at a table and, if we're all directors, we're just talking about the projects and who we worked with last, and a conversation gets old. I've worked with the best of them. It's amazing. It's a blessing every time. But as soon as I change the conversation to community, and the community that we've built and that we're, upholding right now at Black Pigeon, especially with, championing Grand Rapids film, West Michigan film, but also Michigan film and film projects. We vowed to bring all of our projects from LA to bridge the gap to West Michigan. So I think, leading with community, I was taught early on that's how you win. And I'm in it for longevity. I'm not in it to be in LA and say, hey, I just worked with such and such. So,
Right, right.
and I love it here. And it's a lot cheaper to live here. So,
There you go. You're not just in it for the red carpet walk
exactly.
at some point. Although if that happens, good for you.
We have red carpets here. Yeah.
Yes, I'll come as part of your entourage if you do the Oscars or something. Let's jump to what time? Yeah, we got time for this one. This is a tricky one. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So George, you could put on your Rapidian hat for this one, or your black pigeon,
No,
black
you can come
pigeon
over.
issue press. I don't even know how to ask the question. How do you manage? How are you affected by misinformation and disinformation? The way I separate the two is disinformation is on purpose, done for a malicious purpose. Misinformation is just stuff gets rumored and it gets out there and it's believed. Do you wrestle with that? Does it impact your process? Maybe that's a good way to ask the question. And George, you can go first if you want. We'll
Yeah,
just go down the line.
this is actually one of the areas where I'm like most internally inflicted because of the work with the Rapidian. I think its strength is that it has a very strong editorial presence. It's not just somebody's blog, which, not to speak ill of blog, I think
Right.
they're
Different-
incredible content. but
Different thing. Yeah.
one of the things that I think that the Rapidian provides is, when it's working at its best, is training skills of media and news discernment and creation, and then also the sort of editorial process to back that up. So you're not just sort of hanging out there on your own. There's somebody kind of checking over stuff like that. So limiting misinformation or worse, disinformation, whichever one was more malicious, limiting that is a really, really big important part of that. But also for the sort of arts practice, that's where I have the most fun, is sort of deliberately creating things that aren't real but seem real. And in that case, it's usually not malicious. It's sort of like, I made up an animal and here's every detail about it. But
Yeah, you're not actually trying to fool people. You're just giving them something to enjoy.
Yeah, or I think that there's a lot of room for misinformation in satire, and
Yes.
and I think that learning how to read material like that will maybe help you understand when you see misinformation in general. So like I kind of like am fighting these two aspects all the time. But I'm not actually fighting. It's very clear when we're talking about news, it has to go through specific ethical frameworks.
Right.
When you're
right.
talking about art, sky's the limit.
Fiction, satire,
Yeah.
and I think you make a good point. Satire can sharpen your ability to perceive misinformation.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's really important to become a student of satire, especially as the real world gets more and more whatever it is. Yeah.
Self-satire.
Yeah.
Linda, thoughts on? There's a lot out there.
It's a lot out there. I can tell you, I enjoyed the documentary. So kudos to whoever picked the documentary earlier, because I will be watching it again, and I'll be sharing it with my 11-year-old granddaughter, because she believes everything she reads on TikTok and YouTube and all the above. So I definitely want her to view the documentary that was just viewed an hour or so ago. So yeah, for Facebook, I'm always like, for me, I read things and I know what's real, what some things not. And I know the latest one I just saw I'm using this because they were talking about, what's the comedian that they said just had a stroke? Jamie Foxx. And they were just saying that the family is on waiting for a last word or have come to a decision or something. I said, that's not true. So it's certain things that I read that I know, it's like, yeah, that's not true. So for me, I skim over things like that. For Hasu, on the other hand, anything that is written through Hasu is always stories. I do stories. I do individuals, them sharing their information. So I don't have to make up anything. I'm always like interviewing women on, so what's your story? How'd that happen?
Right,
I'm
right.
always-
You
I'm
don't
a-
have to
I'm a
worry
question
about.
queen.
Yeah,
No, I don't have to worry
you're
about
not
that.
worried about
Everything
misinformation
is
coming at you that
someone's
way.
real, So I don't have to write anything on anyone. If someone offers to do a blog in a newsletter or something, it's not really fact checking. It's more like, okay, it's still them telling their business and things like that. So
Right,
don't have
right.
to
I
worry
know
about any of
at
that.
certain film festivals they'll refer to diary films, and the idea is somebody telling their story,
I'm
and it's
all mine is storytelling and interviews and things of
yeah,
that nature.
yeah. And I would argue that's about perception and how they've experienced
Yeah,
things and
it's
what their
all that.
perception is. Oh, good, very nice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Joshua, what about studios might be a little more insulated from this problem, but
Yeah, I would say the misinformation, I guess, with the lane that I'm in is that you need to move to Hollywood to have a successful film career. And that's just not true, especially with, the tax incentives. There's 40 states that have tax incentives. Michigan hopefully will be 41.
we had one for a minute.
We will have one again. We will
I
have
don't
one
remember
again.
what year that
But
was.
yeah, I mean that's the misinformed. Another one is that you need to take a traditional route in school, and that also is not the case. Obviously I champion you need to be educated in some facet, but we are a stepping stone. We are an addition to a college. We're whatever you want to make us. We're a resource to advocate for that.
Excellent, excellent. That was the hard question. Let's see if we've got a good fun one for you here.
Are you going to ask what my favorite color is?
Favorite colors? No, how about this? Anything that comes to mind, when do you feel like you've had the kind of impact with your work? And it doesn't have to be one example, but are there moments where you're like, okay, I've got a printer at the foot of my bed, but I put out my first 50 copies of a zine? Or when did you feel like, all right, I'm doing it, it's happening, or it was received well out in the public? Any moments of, I don't want to say self-pride because that sounds bad, but, taking pride in your work?
For me, it's every day. Every day that I get to see somebody in the studio. I'm not home here in Grand Rapids, but I have the cameras up on my phone, and I see kids just creating in there, and it
Oh, nice.
changes. There's like this moment where you could be out on set. It happened for me last week. I was on set, and I just saw kids in there, and I was super inspired. And I think traditionally, you go, you blow up, or you have some success in your own right, and then you give back. For me, it's why can't you bring a community on the way up with you? And I think that's been so powerful. In those moments that I don't want to wake up and I might not want to go to set, or I might not want to take this job or this extra job just so that we can pay rent at the studio, I look at those kids in the change that's happening, in the learning that's happening. It's the most powerful thing that I've done.
Yeah.
So
You can look at it and say, okay, my vision, it's actually working. These kids are getting inspired and trained, and okay. Linda?
Mine is when women start their businesses, when they get
Yeah.
it from ideation to start. And once you put it on paper, it's a little easier because it's out there.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, most women won't start their businesses because they know if they tell someone, someone's going to hold them accountable. And once they say it to me anyway, because I like the accountability part, and I'm going to bug them to death to the line of stalker-like. I'm
Just
like,
to-
hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do that? Did you
Right.
submit your LLC? Did you? So I
And
think
you're
that is
moving them
hesitation.
forward
Yeah.
from an idea,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
think all of us know this in the DIY world. There are ideas, and they're good, but then to turn it in to the external thing, sometimes there's just stuff you don't expect, or it doesn't come out the way you think it's going to come out.
Yes.
Linda, any particular entrepreneurs that come to mind that where you were like, wow, that's really cool, I wouldn't have thought of that, and they went ahead and put boots on the ground and got it done?
There's so many over 10 years. There's so many. I'm thinking of what's just happened 2 weeks ago, that there's so many opportunities in the hookup. And then when I say that, this is the way we speak, I'll say, I got a hookup for you. And I get so excited when I got a hookup for someone. And then when I call them and they say they're not ready, I almost take it personal. I said, well, I did all this work trying to get this opportunity for you, and you're not ready. And I did. I took it personal just a couple weeks ago. So I hounded her to almost 12 o'clock midnight for her to, like, please, please, please take this opportunity. And it was with Horrocks. And I
Yeah.
I hounded Horrocks to get this food truck in there. I said, please get this food truck in there. Woman-owned business, African American owned
Right,
food truck.
right.
You got the food truck park opening. They said, okay, we'll take her. Here's some dates. And she said no. I was like, how dare you say no? I did all that work to get you in there. But she turned around and said yes. And she'll
There you
be
go.
in August.
You got to the
food truck.
yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's all those type of things I think about that, I get excited about. But I also know that I can't work as hard for someone else and they're not. I just know that it can't be about me.
Yeah, and I'm guessing over the years your
Oh, yeah, there's so
instincts
many
have
of
gotten
those.
more honed on who to put some pressure on. You're almost like an agent and a motivational.
We have to work
Person.
together because I'm telling you, you're saying things that are so in alignment with the way I speak. Because
Yeah.
I call myself a connection curator
Yeah, yeah.
and a broker. So
You're a
it is
human
basically what
LinkedIn.
I'm doing.
Yeah,
A human
you're
LinkedIn.
linking people in.
He's good.
George, where's the impact for you? Where do you feel it?
So my scale's much smaller than that. So as the
Size doesn't matter, George.
as the projects get more complicated and the editions get larger, it's like every time I finish something, then I'm like, wow, we actually pulled it off.
Yeah, good for
that's,
you.
That's exciting. And then it's also, honestly, it's gratifying when things get collected. Like Grand Valley has a special collection of everything that I produce with Issue Press, and that
Oh,
is-
really? They're keeping an archive.
They're keeping an archive. So,
Oh.
like, to get that kind of recognition locally, which I feel like I've
That's
had
nice.
a harder time getting recognition locally, that was really gratifying.
Yeah, yeah.
When they were willing to take that on. And then, like, when individual pieces will get in, like, the MoMA Library or the library at the Met or at the New York Public Library, that just those little instances of, like, wow, this tiny little thing that I made here in Grand Rapids is, like,
Got
being
scooped up.
collected by these major institutions. That is honestly really gratifying. That
Yeah.
the work is being, like, preserved in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Will be available for research down the road. So that it's very, very small scale, but those are like tiny victories that have been really important to me as I kind of continue with the practice.
Well, and before we segue on, that's a good segue to the next thought. But what's the biggest print job you've ever done? And were you scared that it was going to overwhelm your resources?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the rare local projects. I worked with Premier Skate Shop and
Okay.
Notre in Chicago to make I think it was like 3,800 zines.
Oh, wow, 3,800.
And
Okay.
that was a really insane production.
Yeah.
And,
Your poor little Migo.
Yeah.
Can it crank out 3,800?
Migo, that's what I'm going to name it. Yeah, minimal reprints, but there
Okay,
was
good,
some.
good.
But I appreciate them taking a chance on a very admittedly finicky printing process.
Right.
But
right.
that was that.
And it worked.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't gotten. They haven't asked.
They didn't come
for
back
the
at
money
you with
back,
a
so
a
it seemed
lawsuit.
like it worked.
We're going to call that a success. He
Yeah.
did not get sued.
Yeah, it's been like 2
Um,
years, so I think I'm safe.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, that was the largest. For my own publishing, my largest edition has been about 1,000.
Okay, okay. And just a quick side note: is the the archive at Grand Valley? Is it open? Can people go in and check it out, or is it?
You can't check it out.
It's like a reference material.
Yeah.
Type thing. Gotcha.
Yeah, for the sort of zine, I've actually only ever heard of one library that allows artist books and zines for checkout.
For checkout, yeah.
And
Understandable.
It's in Stavanger, Norway.
Yeah.
But most places like that keep it under wraps, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay.
I think there might be one book at the Grand Rapids Public Library that I made with a former employee of the library that is available for checkout about Gert Van Houten, a local
Okay.
cartoonist. I think that one might be available for checkout.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got just a few minutes left, and along those same lines, is there anything you want to tell the audience in the TV world about where to check you out? I think we kind of know, we've kind of gleaned some of it, but anything exciting you want to plug, promote?
At Black Pigeon Studios on Instagram, and just check us out at blackpigeonstudios.com.
Yep.
And then for me, it's just, you'll find my socials on there. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, easy enough.
Yep.
Linda?
I'll have two. May 25th, the Meanwhile Bar, for you guys that like to drink juice or water, whatever.
Oh, right down here at the Meanwhile.
Want to drink juice or water. The Meanwhile Bar, they're doing a fundraiser for Hook a Sister Up, May 25th. I think it's a Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, fundraiser.
Evening?
Yes, 5 to 8 or 8:30. However, 30% of all beverages
Yes.
from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. Goes to Hasu. So you can go in from 4 o'clock to 2.
Excellent.
And, yeah,
30%, 4
That's a
p.m.
huge
So it's like a
fundraiser.
extended
Oh
happy
my
hour for
God,
Hasu.
Yes. Yes, so I'll be there, have a
All
table
right.
up and sharing. However, the largest thing about Hook a Sister Up is our 10-year anniversary.
There you go.
Yes,
10
10-year
years.
anniversary. It's been a struggle, y'all, but it's, 10-year anniversary, June 24th. The social rental and suite, it's on 54th. I can't think of the address. But yes, our 10-year anniversary is June 24th, and I can't wait because live jazz, photo booth, poetry, and it's going to be tons of stories from women entrepreneurs who
Excellent,
have shared
excellent.
their 10 years with Hasu.
And they can get more details on your social.
Yes. Social is Hook a Sister Up. Hook a Sister Community. Linda Otterbridge is my personal Facebook page. IG, Hook a Sister Up. TikTok, Linda Otterbridge.
Hook a Sister Up.
Hook a
Linda
Sister,
Otterbridge.
Sista. Don't go look for sister. It's Hook a Sister Up. And yeah, tickets, sponsorships, all the above. Hook a Sister Up. That's all I gotta say.
Very nice, very nice. And George, anything coming hot off the press?
Some stuff in the works.
Okay.
That it's not really quite ready yet, but this
Okay.
summer will be really busy. I guess the website is issue.press.
Issue.press,
And it's
people.
Issue Press on most social media. Also, I'm not related to this at all, other than I do print the posters, but I'm not involved as an organizer. But I want to give a shout out to the Grand Rapids Zine Fest, which is coming up in late August at Fountain Street Church. It's
Oh,
a
nice.
really great way to get a really broad sampling of the sort of local DIY art and print culture here in Grand Rapids, and also people come from all over-
around
from
the
around, yeah.
region, I would guess.
Yeah, from around the region. Sometimes Canada, which is
Oh, nice. I
Nice,
guess we
too.
are kind of close, aren't we?
We're
So
very
Grand
close.
Rapids Zine Fest at Fountain Street Church, August.
late August.
Late August, all right.
I wish I knew the date off the top of my head.
Just
but
keep Googling Grand
Just
Rapids Zine Fest
Google and
2023.
Grand Rapids Zine Fest. And,
All right.
Yeah, it's really fun. So
Very
shout
good,
out
very
Grand Rapids
good.
Zine Fest.
All right, let's see. We're at 4:55. Andrew, did you want to do closing, or can I do one more? How are we looking? Is Andrew here? He ran away.
It's no rules.
All right. Well,
We're in
then
charge.
we're going to go for the fun bonus question here. Can you recall your most fun, embarrassing, enlightening moments in your career? Not the most, but any fun story where you were like, "This is pretty cool," or maybe you're out in LA and you're dealing with something difficult and you're like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" This is any moments that have helped define you.
I was directing a show, and it was very special, but it was for Michael Jackson's estate.
Yeah.
So we were at the house, and I was talking with Prince, and it was an album release that we were doing all around this artist, Omarion. And we're all talking in the room, and it's this upper room above his garage at the Havenhurst home, which they say that's where his soul lives. So we're up there, and on like wall, floor to ceiling, it's all photos of, and it starts in chronological order of the Jackson 5, and then it ends. You know, there's random like Steven Spielberg and Michael, and
Just
and
like a
tree
whole
hanging out.
photographic
Yeah,
history.
it's just crazy. But anyway, we're standing there talking, and Prince is like, "My dad." He says like the words "my dad," and the door slams behind us.
Oh, wow.
And that was like a really
You had a little bit of a haunting experience. A
that
poltergeist.
was a really big moment. So yeah, that was a fun.
Nice.
that was a
Did it
special-
thrill you, or did it scare you, or both?
Not at all. No,
Not
I knew
scared.
he was
Good,
there.
good.
Yeah, that felt cool.
How
So,
about
yeah,
that? I like
yeah,
that.
That was special.
Linda, any?
We're going to end the show with that. You can't follow that.
You can't follow that.
I have
Has-
nothing.
Have you not had a poltergeist yet in your
was
experience?
weird,
All
man.
right.
No. Oh, my God, no.
Excellent. And before we go off the air, heroes. who are, I don't know about in the zine world. I can think of lots of, anybody you really look up to that has pulled, you've been doing it your whole life.
I guess for publishing, a big inspiration for me has always been Temporary Services in Chicago, which is an artist collective that has been producing a variety of types of really sort of relational, like works built on community relationships, but have really taken self-publishing as the way that they get their message out and
Very nice.
catalog their own work. So they've always been a real big model for me. Even the sort of DIY art space was, in a lot of ways, model a DIY art space that they contemporarily ran in Chicago called Mess Hall. So
Mess Hall, okay.
As even leaving running sort of community-based art spaces and working my way into publishing, they've still kind of been there as
How about that?
as sort of like
Temporary Services
yes,
in Chicago. You could probably find them online,
Indiana
I'm guessing.
now.
Okay. All right, Linda?
I have about 4. I have these women that I follow, and I call them my online mentors. Rashonda Pratt is one, and
All right.
I talked about her with Visibility is Power. Sassy Jones built this whole online business, clothes and designing clothes, like a QVC kind of thing. And my last one would be Stormy Wellington. And I say that, these 3 women, because their personalities are crazy. If you can follow them, they're great if you can get past the other stuff around them, but they have so much information to share. So I follow those 3 women constantly.
Very good, very good. Well, I think we're about out of time. Any closing thoughts? Anybody have anything they want to say that we didn't talk about?
Do you have any heroes?
Oh, a hero. I was kind of thinking.
No,
I thought your ghost experience might
Yeah, no.
also be your hero experience.
no, my
I shouldn't
hero,
assume that.
my heroes are just anybody that has the willingness to, pick up and do something that nobody else is doing, and it might not be popular, but they're willing to bet it all on it. I think that's respectable, whether you win or lose. That's that stuff.
That's the
for me,
stuff, yeah.
That's why I'm full DIY, and I think you guys share the same.
Yeah, I feel like the DIY, I can sort of feel that we all have slightly different directions we flow in, but the core of, doing it yourself and knowing what you want to do and then just pursuing it and not necessarily waiting around for somebody to allow you to do it, if you want to think of it that way. Yeah.
I think it's really important to make your own fun.
Make your own fun. Oh, and I'm glad you said that. You never know what people have. That's why I like DIY stuff, because there might be some person you've never met that does a zine from Indiana about a skate shop, and you read it, and you're like, I would never get to see this otherwise if somebody hadn't done it themselves. Because everybody, I think, has some type of story to tell, some type of story to share. And it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it might, somebody might pick up something or see a film or hear a podcast and it might really move them and speak to them. And you don't always know. And so if we didn't have DIY, I feel like we'd end up with just too much homogenized media that's designed to get, either more clicks or sell more tickets and there's nothing wrong with selling tickets. Like, I hope your movie crushes it, worldwide.
Me too.
Yeah, there you go. But you got to have people doing all the stories. We can't just have the mainstream money-making stories, or we lose out, I think. I think that's the end of our talk here. Any questions? Anybody want to shout out anything? I'm going to take that as a no. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. This has been great. I hope we can. I'm trying to convince Andrew to do this quarterly. Maybe not all day, but because that's a big ask. But I think if we keep talking about this kind of stuff, I think that's where we're headed with this. I don't want to be too naive, but I feel like people taking control of media and making it local and personal is a really good direction for us to go in. So thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah!